Hi class, in this video, I'm going to go over chapter 2 in your OpenStax textbook, so the choice in a world of scarcity. So let's get started. So scarcity, we mentioned this in chapter 1, so it's whenever there isn't enough resources for the economy, but I want you guys to think scarcity on the smaller scale, right? Think about your education. So in general, we all know that, higher education means higher salary. Then why aren't everybody going to school getting a higher education? Why are you doing this, right? So what is the cost for that? And the short answer is choice and trade-off. That by attending school, you're actually giving up your other opportunities involved. So one way to think about LeBron James, right? So the guy is a very good NBA player and arguably one of the best. Maybe not as good as Michael Jordan, but that's not a debate. But think about which college did LeBron James went to? Now, Michael Jordan went to North Carolina. He won the NCAA championship. But which college did LeBron James went to? The answer is he didn't. He went straight from high school to NBA. And then what if he did? Right? So what if, let's suppose LeBron James decided to go to UT Austin, right? What will be his cost of attending UT Austin? Right? We can think about, he's going to pay for the tuition, he's going to pay for the textbook, he's to pay for the room and board. But what else is he giving up? That might be more than any other students attending UT Austin. Well, that will be 4 years of NBA salary, right? So by attending college, he couldn't play pro basketball anymore, right? So for him, there's a cost involved, right? So for many people, that there are different costs of attending college, and that's where the decision-making process comes from. All right, so let's talk about our individual consumers. So know what's a budget constraint. So budget constraint is the all possible consumption combinations of good and service that somebody can afford given the price of the good when all the income are spent. So imagine the income you have and you have to spend between two good. So what are the different combinations of the two good you can purchase? That is measured by our budget constraint. And then we also have something called an opportunity set. So it's all possible combinations of consumption that someone can afford given the price of good and the individual's income. So the budget constraint is the same thing as an opportunity set. So this is the example for budget constraints. So like imagine we have an individual consumer here whose budget, so the total income he has, is $10. And then he has a choice between either burgers or bus ticket. So for his $10, he can purchase a maximum 5 burgers. So that's 10 divided by 2. And also a maximum he can purchase 20 bus ticket. Right, that's a 10 divided by 50 cents. So this line here, this A, B, C, D, E, F point on the line, representing different combinations. This consumer here can consume given his limited income of $10. So let's say for a point C, he will be able to consume three burgers and then 8 bus ticket, right? So this is all different opportunities, and this is also known as opportunity set and then budget constraint. And also known as the opportunity cost. So opportunity cost will indicate what people must give up when they want to obtain something else. So if you look at this budget constraint or the opportunity set we had from the example, that if we try to move, let's say we're going to go from point C, let me do this, so point C to point B, what are we giving up? Right? So for point C to point B, we're getting one more burger, so that's a good thing. But at the bus ticket, we're giving up 4 bus tickets, right? So there's an opportunity cost involved when you go from point C to point B. So what you must give up to gain something else, that portion you must give up is called an opportunity cost. So for everything you do, there's an opportunity cost involved. And then if you reverse it, if you go from point B to point C, then we're going to gain more bus ticket, but we're giving up burger for it. Right? So it depends on which direction you're moving on your budget constraint, your opportunity cost is different. All right, so now let's go back to our, attending college, right? So what is your opportunity cost of attending college? Then you're gonna think about what is your actual cost. So what is the cost of that you're paying out of pocket? So you're paying for the textbook, you're paying for the tuition, you're paying for your transportation. So those will be the actual costs you're paying for the college. But there's also an opportunity cost involved. There's something you must give up in terms of opportunities. So if you're attending college, you cannot get a full-time job anymore. So that wage you must give up. That's part of opportunity cost, and that's part of a total cost of attending college. All right, some definitions. So know what's a marginal analysis. We're going to touch more about this in the future chapters. So marginal analysis is whenever we're comparing our marginal benefit versus the marginal cost. So for every decision you're making, for everything you're engaging in, we're looking at how much is our marginal benefit versus how much is the marginal cost we must give up. That's called a marginal analysis. And then utility measures the happiness from consuming goods and services. So this is measured in something called UTO. So you can say have 7 UTO, 1 UTO, 3 UTO. So it measures your total happiness from consumption. All right, so from that, we need to know something called a law of diminishing marginal utility. So definition says, as a person receives more of a good, the additional utility from each additional unit of good declines. So what it says is that if you keep consuming the same good, the additional happiness from the additional consumption becoming less and less and less and less. So imagine that you are very, very thirsty. You go to HEB, you buy a can of Coke, you drink it, right? You feel much better. So your happiness for that first can of Coke is very, very high. Now, let's suppose you consume your first can of Coke and you're thinking, hey, I want a second one. Now, if you consume that second can of Coke, are you more happy than before, just as happy, or less happy than before? You're probably less satisfied than before, right? Because you already had the first one. You're not that thirsty anymore. It's nice to have two. But the marginal benefit, the additional benefit for the second Coke is much lower than the first Coke. And if you keep doing this, your third, your fourth, your fifth Coke, the more Coke you consume, the lower the marginal benefit from each additional can of Coke. And that's called a law of diminishing marginal utility. And also known as a sunk cost. So sunk costs are the cost that's already paid for, then cannot be recovered. That's called a sunk cost. So when business consumers are making decisions, we have to ignore what the sunk cost is, right? So let's say that you bought ticket to a movie, right? So let's suppose you plan to go see the new what movies are there? I haven't seen it. Let's say you bought ticket for um yeah, I haven't watched a movie for a long time, guys. I don't know, Avenger League or Justice League or whatever, right? So Spider-Man. Okay, so you bought a ticket for Spider-Man, and you already bought a ticket, and then the show is, let's say, this evening at 6. And also happens that today, this evening at 6, there is a game on ESPN for NBA Finals. So you're thinking, hey, which one should I go now? So you can think about what is the benefit. So you can either watch a movie, Spider-Man, or you can watch a game, NBA Finals. And what is the cost, right? So let's think about the ticket you pay for the movie. You already pay for it. There's no way to get the money back, right? So it doesn't matter what you choose now. That money is gone now. So that ticket you pay for, that's called a sunk cost. So when you think about what is the decision process between this NBA game and then how much you pay for the movie ticket, that movie ticket, because already paid for, you can never get it back, then that shouldn't be waiting on your decision making process. You shouldn't even care about it because it's already paid for. And that's called a sunk cost. Okay, so sunk costs are to ignored whenever you're making a decision. Okay. All right, also known as a production possibility frontier. So production possibility frontier is similar to our budget constraint, but this is on the bigger scale. So budget constraints shows you your individual consumers, but the production possibility frontier, also known as the PPF, is a diagram shows you the combination of two good economy can produce given available resource and technologies, right? So looking at the entire economy at the production of two good. So, and then also the slope for the opportunity, the production opportunity frontier will show you the opportunity cost, right? So what the slope is, that's going to be the opportunity cost between two good productions. Okay, so we have this PPF, the production possibility here for economy. So economy have a choice between either providing more healthcare or providing more education, right? So different point on the PPF shows you the efficient production for the country. Now, there are some important information on this diagram that you need to know, so some important characteristics. So for everything on the point, so for our A, B, C, D, E, F, everything on the point, they're all efficient. And then for anywhere outside the point, let's say we'll have point G over here. Now, because point G is to the outside of our PPF, we call them impossible. Because we don't have enough resources to produce point G. Now, if you have a point inside, let's say this point right here, point H, we call this inefficient. Inefficient means that we're not using all the resources, that there are some resources left unused, right? So anywhere on the line is efficient, anywhere outside the line is impossible, and anywhere inside the line, we call them inefficient. Right? So we should know those special characteristics. All right, so this points on the line A, B, C, D, E, F will show you that how the economy moves given our resources while still be efficient. So using all the resources we have where we can produce the different productions. Now, obviously at point A, we have the most healthcare, but you also have zero education. And then point F, we have the most education, but you have zero healthcare. So where should we be at? Somewhere between A to F, okay? And that's up to individual country to decide. So a society can choose any possibilities. Now, where to choose, that will depend on the preference for the country. Now, some country, let's say if you're Japan, then you might be having a lot of old people, then you want to be somewhere between B or C. And then if you're a young country, like maybe, let's just say America, we have a lot of young people, then we want to be somewhere like a point D, spending more of resources on education. But again, outside is impossible, inside is inefficient. All right, and also know what's the law of diminishing return. So this is similar to our law of diminishing marginal utility. So it says as the additional increment of resources to produce goods or services are added, the marginal benefit from those resources will decline. So the more of something you produce, the lower the additional return from the additional resources. And that's because sometimes we have a specialty in resource. There's some resource good in one thing, but not good in other things. And then when you do that, you can have this law of diminishing return. So the more resource you put into it, the lower production you get out of it. That's called a law of diminishing return. So let's suppose we have example. Let's suppose we have a company with two workers. So let's have a person A and person B. Now, and let's suppose this company here, all they're doing, they're translating papers from English to Spanish, and then from English to Chinese. Now, let's suppose person A is very good in Spanish. He can do 10 Spanish paper. Person A is not good in Chinese. He can only do 2 Chinese paper. And then person B can do 2 Spanish, but 10 Chinese. Now, if you draw the PPF between the two people here, let's put Spanish on top, Chinese on the horizontal axis. So at the maximum between your person A and B, at maximum we can do 12 Spanish paper. And then at maximum we can do 12 Chinese paper. Now, if the economy is operating very efficiently, then we can do 10 and 10. So 10 and 10 is our main point. So if you connect the 3 points, then this line is this PPF for the two people company here. All right, so let's look at what is our return for each additional investment or for each additional worker, right? So from the beginning, if you go from point A to B, and let's call this point C. So from A to B, we're gaining, from A to B, we're gaining 10 Chinese paper while only giving up 2 Spanish paper. And that sounds pretty good, right? So why not gaining 10 Chinese and only giving up 2 Spanish? But if you're already at point B, you want even more Chinese paper, then for the next point, you have to only gain 2 more Chinese while you're giving up 10 Spanish paper. So how much you're giving up to gain the additional Chinese paper is getting more and more and more and more, right? That's called a law of diminishing return. So you're getting less return from your additional investment. Okay, so because of the law of diminishing return, that sometimes you're gonna see PPF that's bolted outward. That's called a law of diminishing return. If it's a straight line, that's a constant return. All right, we talk about this. Okay, so the two major differences between a budget constraint and a PPF. So budget constraint is a straight line, right? So that's a constant return. So what you can buy from one to next because the price level is fixed. So you have a constant return between the two goods. But for the PPF, sometimes you're going to see the border outward, and that's because of the law of diminishing return. Also on your budget constraint, we have a specific numbers on the axis, so we know how many burgers, how many bus tickets can purchase. But on the PPF, they tend to be more general, with no number on the PPF. Now, some similarities, we do see the situation of trade-off between both good, right? So we do see that doesn't matter if it's a straight line or border hour shaped PPF, that by getting more of good one, you must give up more of good two, right? So there's a trade-off involved between both set of PPF and a budget constraint, and that's the idea of opportunity cost. Okay, so also know what's a productive and an allocative efficiency. So productive efficiency means that you're using all the resources possible, that you have no leftover. So when it's impossible to produce more of one good without decreasing the quantity of other good, then all the resources are exhausted. That's called a productive efficiency. Allocated efficiency means that what the actual production you have is what the society wants, right? So even though you are using all the resource to produce everything you can, but at the end, the stuff you produce, is that what we wanted? Because if it is, that's called an allocated efficiency. But if it's not, then that's not efficient anymore. So imagine that our country decided we're going to use all the resources we have in the country, so all the computers, all the machines, all the laborers to produce uh, Justin Bieber CDs. Well, if you're a fan of Justin Bieber, that's great. But what if you're not a fan of Justin Bieber, right? We don't like that. That's not an allocated efficiency anymore because the production you have is not what the society want to have. So for productive efficiency, this is what, like we mentioned before, anywhere on the line, you're A, B, C, D, E, or A, B, C, D. Hey, where's this F? I just noticed there's no point F on the line. So for A, B, C, D, F on the line, they're all called efficient. But for point R here, notice from point R that you are inside the line, that is inefficient. So point R is not productive efficiency. However, your other points A, B, C, D, F are productive efficiencies. So for point A and point F, even though they're at the end of the line, that is still very, very efficient because it's using all the resource you have. So how much good a country decide to produce depends on how expensive it is to produce versus buying from different countries. So that's why for Americas, even though we can produce other shoes and shirts, but we choose not to, we can buy them cheaper from other countries. Now this is trade. We mentioned this briefly in the chapter one. So we have this globalization, import, export. That is trade. And what trade is based on something called comparative advantage. So when a country can produce a good at a lower opportunity cost, that is called a comparative advantage. So to find the comparative advantage, we need to compare what is the opportunity cost is. So to find the opportunity cost, now you can do this two ways. You can look at it, what is the slope for the PPF that will show you the opportunity cost. Another way to do it that I showed this in my homework videos is that you can use something called a four price method. So actually find out what is the price of each good for each country. So find out how much is the price of sugarcane in Brazil and how much price for wheat in Brazil and the price for sugarcane in America and how much the price for wheat in America. Compare those four prices and then whoever is lower, that is a comparative advantage and that is the good the country should exporting. Okay. So let's put in some actual number here. So hopefully this will help you in your own homework and quizzes. Let's put in some number here. So let's suppose we have 10 over here for Brazil for sugarcane, 5 for wheat, and then for America this would be 4 and then 6. Okay, so we're gonna find out how much is the price of sugarcane in Brazil, how much is the price for wheat in Brazil. Now, when we do these prices here, we don't mean in terms of actual dollar amount. We mean in terms of the opportunity cost. So when looking for the price of sugarcane, then looking for how much wheat does the country need to give up to produce each sugarcane. So it's going to be a very simple fraction. So what's going to do that whatever price you're looking for, that maximum production, you're going to set it at the bottom of the fraction. Right? So looking for the price of sugarcane, so 10 sugarcane at the bottom of the fraction, and then on top of fraction is the maximum of the other good, so 5 wheat, and this will be half wheat. So for Brazil, whenever they produce a sugarcane, they're giving up half wheat. And then for wheat, we do the same thing. So there will be 5 wheat at the bottom. Oh, that looks so bad. I'm sorry, guys. 5 wheat at the bottom, and then the 10 sugar canes on top now. So simplify this would be 2 sugar cane. So that's the price for Brazil. And then for US, we do the same thing. Let me use different color. So for US, we're going to do the price of sugar cane and then price of wheat. So for sugar cane for US, it's 4 sugar cane. For wheat, is 6. This will be 1.5 wheat. And then for wheat, that's going to be 4 on top, 6 at the bottom. So this would be 0.67. That's a 6. Sorry, guys. I should be. All right, guys. So I typed it on a new page here. So actually, right on a new page. So once you have the 4 prices, the next step you're gonna do is to compare to see who has a lower price in which production. So when we comparing the price of sugarcane, so in Brazil costs you half wheat, in US costs you 1.5 wheat. That is lower. So we say Brazil has the comparative advantage in the production for sugarcane. And then for wheat, let's compare number again. So for wheat, for Brazil is 2 sugarcane. For US is 0.67 sugarcane. So that is lower. So we say US has the comparative advantage in the production for for wheat. So whoever have a lower opportunity cost, that is your comparative advantage. And also remember, for comparative advantage, it's always one country, one comparative advantage. So if you find out that Brazil is good in sugarcane, that means automatically US must be good in wheat. All right, so last topic I'm going to talk about is the objections to this economic approach. So when economists think about what we should do for individual consumers, individual business, or the country as a whole, we're comparing, what is our marginal benefit, what is our marginal cost, what is our utility, what is our law of diminishing marginal returns, all this information we just mentioned. But consumers and business don't always behave according to this economic approach. And there are many reasons behind it. And one reason is that sometimes um, not every individual in the economy are very rational. That there are behaviors that's irrational. So those cannot be measured in the economic approach. But we're going to talk more about this in the later chapters or consumer choice. Now, another two important definitions you guys need to understand is the difference between a positive statement and then a normative statement. So, positive statement dealing with facts, numbers, what the world is, and a normative statement deal with what the world should be. So, personal opinions. That's a normative statement. So for this class, we tend to stick with positive statement, but those can be easily measured and verified. We're going to stay away from normative statement because those cannot be verified. And lastly, something called an invisible hand. So this is a concept developed by Adam Smith in his book Wealth Nations. So the concept says the individual self-interest behavior can lead to a positive social outcome. So sometimes by doing what's best for yourself can also be good for society as a whole. So for example, think about your education, right? So by getting education for yourself, this is your own self-interest, but this behavior is also making our entire society better off because later on you're going to become a productive member for society, getting good paying job, paying higher taxes, contributing to the economy. That's a good social outcome. So individual self-interest can lead to a positive social outcome. They're not always in conflict. All right, guys, that's it for this chapter. Have any question, let me know, and I will see you for chapter 3. Bye bye.